Welcome to the third episode of Holistic Touch podcast. My name is Agata Malczewska and I live and work in Amsterdam with Ayurveda, shamanic ceremonies and sound therapy. In today's episode I have a special guest, Kim van der Geest. Kim is a colleague of mine and she works in a similar field to mine as a shamanic guide and sound healer. I know what you're probably thinking, oh my god, is there more shamanic guides and sound healers than Agata? Agata Holistic Touch? I am shocked too. But I found Kim and I keep finding more and more people in this country. So I thought, why not connect and talk about their experiences in this spiritual, shamanic or sound world. Kim is a colleague of mine. We met very shamanistically through Instagram. Later, when we met in person and I heard Kim's story, I was amazed. It was fascinating to hear her experience and everything that is happening in her life and how she gets to the place where she does, how she found Pachamama, her own space, and how she got into this work. Having also the background as a psychologist and working in a pretty challenging fields like prison or homelessness. She has her own space, Pachamama, founded in 2023. It's a center for her consciousness. She works holistically, using extensive knowledge and experience as a psychologist, sound healer, and coach. Over the past 8 years, she has taught yoga and meditation classes and given various courses and workshops aimed at increasing consciousness. In addition to the spiritual path, she also worked for 15 years as a psychologist within various organizations, including the prison system, homeless and refugee shelters, assisted living institutions, addiction care, forensic psychiatry, and the university. She currently works both online and offline with clients from all over the world. Hello, Kim. Welcome to my Holistic Touch podcast.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming from all the way from
Sassenheim.
Yeah, exactly, to Amsterdam. You made an effort, yes, thank you. Today, I would like to invite you to talk about your involvement into spiritual world, because I know you have many years of participation in that field. Let's go to the big story. You mentioned to me before that you had a near-death experience that also changed a lot of stuff in your path. Can you maybe tell us more about this?
So in 2019, I went on a solo travel to Nepal and I did a trekking there in the mountains. It was my first experience with a trekking. We went up higher and higher and I was with a guide and a porter. And then for some reason I started to feel unwell, but they were like, oh no, it's your height. You must have had like low blood pressure, so just continue. But I already intuitively felt that something was off, but I just kept going. It's also in my nature to just pursue and keep going. And at some point I got so sick, so I got really bad altitude sickness to the point where I was not able to remember my name. I couldn't walk straight. I was vomiting blood. It was excruciating headaches. And then I remember one night we were up in the mountains and I said, I cannot do it anymore. I need to go back. But it was pitch black. So there was no way of getting a helicopter or walk back. So they were like, we have to spend one night here. Tomorrow we will call a helicopter. So I spent the night there. We were, it was very remote. So we were sleeping on the floor next to these rice bags. Like rats were walking around. Not the ideal circumstances where you're feeling already this bad. And then in the night, I saw myself exiting my body. So I could see my body laying there on the floor, but I was not inside anymore. And then I saw this big light and these spirit creatures coming towards me, and they said, okay, you can come home now. And it felt so good that at some point I was like, okay, yeah, I'm up here. No one will ever know where I am. Let's just go. But also I could see and I could feel there was like this other creature, which I will call my spirit guide. And he came up to me and he said, but it's not your time yet. You have a vision here or a mission here on Earth, which you need to complete. So you need to go back to Earth. And your mission is to transform darkness into light. So I could feel how I was being pushed back into my body, and I woke up, and it was all of a sudden it was morning again, and I was back in my body, and then the telephone signals, they were off, so we couldn't call for a helicopter, so I had to walk 8 hours back with still feeling like physically
Crap.
unwell. Crap, yeah. And then I walked back 8 hours. I was chanting a mantra, Anando Ham, which means I am bliss. I was chanting it, and for some reason I made it. We had to be on a jeep ride for 3 hours, and then I went to the hospital, and they said, like, we don't know how you even are alive and why you are here. And the people over there in Nepal, they took care of me for a whole week, and it was like a big event in my life, but I was by myself. So then I noticed something huge happened. I felt like they gave me my mission, but I couldn't really explain it to people. So I felt very alone, and when I got back home, there was of course I told people, but no one really could understand what I'd been through. So I unfortunately went into a big depression. But then after a while, every single time I wanted to kind of like say, oh, I don't want to be on a spiritual path, like let's do something else. Every single time I was brought back to the path of spirituality and helping people. So at some point I just couldn't close my eyes anymore. And then I started to think, what do I need to do? And then it started with embodying and taking care of my body, my physical body. And then slowly, when I became more grounded, actually, that's where I was thinking, I want to quit my job as a psychologist for all these companies. And I want to combine psychology and spirituality so I can give people a holistic approach to their healing process. So, yeah.
Wow. What a story. If you could see my face, I was shaking all the time, like, wow, wow, wow. Wow. So you also said that this was a big shift in what you are doing now, right? How it impacted your life. So first you had to go through depression. Mm-hmm. And how long did it take for you after this really also huge experience that you had with almost reaching the end of your life?
Yeah. It kind of felt like sometimes they say like the dark night of the soul.
Yeah, yeah.
And so the thing is, like, it took, I think, 2 years actually.
Wow.
And but I also could see, like, I'm not afraid of the darkness or the more difficult parts of our life, because I feel like there's a lot of beauty in the darkness and like creation. But sometimes it's just really hard to get out of it. So I could, at some point, I just saw myself going into the same loops. And then I just noticed, like, if I want to do something else, it's psychology, actually. I have to do the complete opposite of what I'm doing right now. So instead of staying at home and isolating myself, I go out and meet people. Instead of not giving myself proper nutrition, let's cook myself a nice dinner. So it was slowly, with these small changes that made me feel, it kind of like raised my vibration. Because if you think about it, depression is like a low vibrating disease, like, or mental disorder. And then what you can do is to really focus on what is high vibrational for me. And maybe it sounds a bit abstract, but if you think about a glass of water, it's like, if it's like purified water maybe, but it holds a higher vibration than, let's say, a sugary lemonade.
Yes.
And you will feel the difference when you take it, and you will feel how your body reacts. And it's the same thing with the sounds, the people you surround yourself with, the books you read, the TV shows you watch. So I started to make those small changes, and then I felt slowly like myself again.
Wow. I think that's great tips for anyone who feels in general low. And the fact that it takes 2 years for you, for example, to change that and shift from the person who feels very depressed into a person who can finally go back to normal life, it only shows that the process takes time. That's, for me, the takeaway from that. So what happened after?
So after that, I was still working. I think I was still working then in prison as a psychologist. And then at some point I just realized that every single time I was treating people or giving like treatments, sessions as a psychologist, I just noticed there were these boundaries. Like, it was like on the cognitive behavioral side, most of the treatments, the therapies, but I just felt like people need more. So where I needed to stop because of like protocol of the company, I felt like, but I see people need more. Because since I was little, I also see, feel, and hear things that are maybe not seen by everyone. So for me, it kind of became frustrating. So then I knew, like, I want to give people more. I want to see, so they can see themselves as in a holistic way, because it's not only your brain you need to change. It's like more than that. It's it's your brain, but it's also like your spiritual body, your emotional body, you have so many layers. And I felt like in the companies where I was working, it was mainly focused on the cognitive part of and the physical part.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then how did you manage to find back your path to this spiritual, let's say, work?
By first embodying it for myself. So I started to do my morning practice. I do yoga and meditation in the morning, so I became very religiously again with like doing like my morning practice, which gave me a lot of foundation for the rest of the day. So I started first with myself.
Yes.
And then I felt, because I took better care of myself, I can also hold space for others. So slowly. So already when I was still working as a psychologist, I started to host ceremonies, teach yoga classes, meditation classes, and then slowly.
So what kind of ceremonies? What do you work with? What are your tools?
So I use different tools, but I use sound. So I give sound healing, sound journeys, but I also work with cacao, ceremonial cacao, full moon, new moon ceremonies, meditations, yoga, all kinds of techniques.
And then there was Pachamama as well happening. So Pachamama, it's Kim's space. You started it 1.5 years ago.
Yeah.
So how did that change your path, career?
It changed my career a lot. So I just got back I was abroad for 10 months. And I also went to Peru, where I did like a plant medicine ceremony. And in the plant ceremony, I was told, you're gonna open your own space, and it's just you have to open your eyes when you come back to the Netherlands, because it's just gonna unfold and you just have to go for it. And I was like, but I actually want to travel. I don't want to settle down in the Netherlands. But then after 10 months, when I got back, yeah, you already guess it, there was this space. And I was like, oh, this is really beautiful. And it just resonated so much with me. And then I thought, let's give it a try. And if I'm going to do it, I don't want to do it in a small way. I just want to go all in. And I want to give it my all and see where it leads. So that's how I started Pachamama.
And you open it also in like more smaller Dutch town, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm also curious, how was it for you to bring that work there into that society? Was it well received, and did you immediately saw as well that there was a need for that there?
I think it's difficult to start such a place in a town that is, maybe not so familiar with spirituality and psychology. So it's not to say that they were distant about it, but it's like something people find. When they read spirituality, they think automatically, oh, it's this like vague thing, this abstract thing. So they don't really know what it is. And then when people started coming, they were like, oh, it's actually very grounding, and it's really helping me to relax. And slowly, I started to see like more and more people coming. But I also have a lot of clients that come from outside of the town. So they come from the cities or...
And you mentioned grounding part, which also we talk a lot with Kim about that, to embody the spirituality. And that, I think, it's also a very important topic for both of us. So can you tell me a bit more about the work that you do, and what's the priorities for you in how you help people, and through your tools, but also through your beliefs and through your ways?
I think it's really important when you go onto the path of self-development and self-exploration. It's important to start with the basics, so with the physical body. So if you think about, like, it's a pyramid of Maslow, where the basic foundation is like focusing on your basic needs, like food, sleep, all kinds of things. And then slowly you can progress to higher levels where in the top it's like self-development. So to me, it's really important to start with the basics to create like a strong foundation. And then from there, there's more space in your whole system to focus also on the emotional body, on the spiritual body. But I think nowadays, it's not really something that people are doing wrong, but I think it's maybe a lack of knowing, is that they will start to focus a lot in the higher realms, like on the spiritual body. But then if you do a lot of spiritual work, but you don't embody it, you don't feel grounded in yourself, it's really hard to keep up with it. So I think most of those people, they will go search for a different ceremony, another ceremony. It's kind of like these dopamine that your brain is creating.
Yes.
So you're constantly seeking for that dopamine high. But I think when you feel comfortable in your own skin, let's say, it's easier to integrate those tools that you've been learning.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Beautifully said as well. And for me, when I'm trying to understand as well what's going on nowadays, and maybe you also, you who are listening to us, notice that there is a lot of offerings right now nowadays, especially if you live in the Netherlands, spiritual offerings, and it comes with a lot of beautiful opportunities, but also with a lot of risk of losing yourself in something that it's only taking you higher, but kind of separates you from your life and from normal, regular stuff that you have to do, which means remember to cook for yourself, do the errands, go shopping, and also have time maybe for your friends and family, and focus also on just very regular stuff. Sometimes you have to clean the flat and remember to pay the bills and stuff like this. So what you're saying, I think I agree with you 100%. And I also know that what we appreciate about talking to each other is that we have very similar approach to that. That, first start with yourself, first of all. And second of all, I think it's to show through your life, basically how you do it, that also the simple things can be, as you call it, spiritual. I don't have actually a better way for that, the spirituality, but it's recently used, the word is used a lot. But yeah, it's very important to remember to bring everything into our life. It can be very small acts. It doesn't have to be something huge, but can be also something that can help us just to be better people and maybe have better connections to each other. So you work, for example, with cacao, but also with the sound. And do you have any stories that was like, or maybe breakthrough for you at your work, or something that you will always remember?
So many stories, of course, but I think the most breakthrough moments, I was already giving like energy healings, but then I started to be connected with tuning forks. For some reason, when I was using the tuning forks on people, I could see that normally what I would do with energy healings, I could see it like multiplied by 1,000. So I felt the effects of the tuning forks were so profound, and people were giving like feedback of being so fully relaxed, or blockages that were released, and they could actually release it in that moment, that I felt like that was a big breakthrough. And it also really helped me to not use all my energy, but it was a good tool. But mainly what I found really beautiful is I don't see myself, for example, as a healer, or let's say that I see myself as a guide. So I find it the most beautiful thing when people start to recognize themselves again, take responsibility for their own life, and that their own healing properties inside of their selves get activated again, so they feel secure again, like, oh, I can do this myself. So that's the most breakthrough, that it's not about me, I'm not special, it's not about me, it's about the other person. And the moment when I could see that, because my guru in India once told me, you cannot help anyone. And I was like, I think I was like 25, and I was like, but I was like, I'm a psychologist, of course I can help people. He was like, no, think about it, you can never help anyone. And that was also like a big breakthrough for me, that if you take yourself out of the equation, but you see yourself as a guide, you can help people in such a different way, because you can kind of get your ego a bit out of the way, and you're more focused on the person who is in front of you, and you're not making them rely on you, but you're just like, you're pointing the way, and it's up to them if they do it or not. And then it also feels more comfortable for you as a facilitator, because you don't feel the responsibility to make sure someone else is changing their lives. It's up to them. We all have a choice. We all have a decision. It's not that I know better than someone else. It's just like, I can show you, but you can choose what you want.
Yes.
And whatever decision you make, it's fine.
Yes, that's a great summary of this work, I think. And also to not put yourself on a pedestal, but you do work. This is the work. Some other people, they're doing other professions and showing the way and the choice. Yeah, that's, I think, one of the most important lessons I've also learned myself, that you cannot fix people, you cannot force their healing and change and shift, even if you really, really try, and even if you dedicate your life to it, because they have to do it by themselves. They need to want it by themselves, and you can always be the sign, maybe the showing the path, but then the choice is always the other person.
Yeah.
And what about some on the other spectrum of your work? Did you ever have a situation or a session where you felt maybe it was or very uncomfortable or maybe even dangerous, or something was really off during your work?
This relates mostly to when I don't collaborate a lot, but sometimes, of course, I do. And then I had some collaborations where I felt like our approach was a bit different, but then I realized that during the ceremony. It's not that we didn't talk about it before, but during the ceremony I realized that I always set like an energy field before doing a ceremony, but I realized the other person was not doing that, was working in a completely different way. I'm not saying in a wrong way, but it didn't align with my values and my views. For me, safety is really important, also on an energetic way, because people come to a ceremony, they are very vulnerable, they are open, they are willing to release some stuff, and then you have to be able to hold space for them. So I remember one time this person took drugs before a ceremony, and of course you always say like, you cannot do that, but this person did that, and he also had some like mental difficulties. So this person started to completely release in such a big way that other people got also a bit upset by it. But I was playing music, so I couldn't go to that person. But I was expecting the other person who I was collaborating with to go to help this person out and to make sure, to hold space.
Yes.
So then at some point I needed to stop and help this person. So it just didn't felt aligned for me. So it was maybe not unsafe, but I think it's very important that if you do it with two facilitators, that both of the facilitators are capable of or able to see what is happening with the people. Yeah,
that's an interesting story, because I just shared with Kim also similar story about in my ceremony where I was also collaborating, and we were not seeing the same way what was happening to one of the participants. So yeah, I agree. Very important. And coming back to the participant who took drugs, did he admit it immediately? And no, okay. But you just knew?
Yeah, I just knew. I saw it. Maybe it sounds a bit weird for some people, but I get more messages. So at some point I just realized he was under the influence, because I could see his energy field was flowing in a different way. Yeah. So then at the end I confronted him, and I took him aside from the ceremony, because I didn't want to disrupt it for the other people.
Okay. What kind of ceremony was it?
It was just a sound ceremony with breathwork.
Wow. But breathwork can also activate a lot of things, right? Yes. And of course, sound too. So very powerful tools. Things can really happen. And how was the group dealing with this situation?
I think as a facilitator, you always worry a bit more. So you are so aware that you will think, oh no, everyone notices. And then in the end, I realized no one actually noticed, because everyone was so much in their own process, because they were breathing. Yeah. But so everyone responded well. And I think it was a good choice of me to remove the person from the ceremony. We still made sure he stayed in the premises, so not to leave. But we just set him in a different room. That's
also a very bold decision, but sometimes it's very needed when you guide ceremonies, because it can affect everyone else. So the basic rules of the safety for everyone, right? Wow. Was it difficult to make that decision for you?
Not really. No. Okay. And then the other person who I was collaborating with stayed with this person. Oh yeah. So that was nice. So of course I didn't want to leave him alone.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Okay, great. And did that person ever came back to you?
Yeah, we had a conversation after,
Oh.
and yeah, it was actually also a learning point for him at that moment. So the fact that we removed him from the ceremony also made him realize that the things that he was doing were only to kind of numb his pain that was underneath.
Coming back as well to the part, so you're a psychologist, so that's a very different field, right? Because you have the knowledge about the human brain and also all the emotions and how we are structured and how we react. So there is this logic that comes from psychologists, and there's this knowing that comes from the guide part. Do you feel like this is helping you in your work, or sometimes makes it maybe even more complicated because there's this knowing versus feeling?
I think it really helps me in my work, because before it was always a bit difficult in my daily life. I got so much messages coming through the whole day, and now I have a purpose. Now I can use it in a good way because I can help people with it. So some people come to me and we only focus on the psychological part, but some people want more. So then I just combine the two. For example, with family constellations, I can use the messages I get from my guides or from their guides and integrate it with using a psychological tool like the family constellations with the messages I'm receiving. So then it's easier for me to tune in to a role of a family member or an emotion. So it can really help me. And I get the feedback that people really appreciate it, that they feel like it's not only like about the brain, but it's like a different level. And most people that come to me, they are open to accessing those parts inside of themselves as well.
We were also talking about, again, the embodying part, right? The challenges as well that comes within the spiritual world. I would like to talk a bit more about this as well. You, I think, also observe more and more of our society more flying high in the sky. What do you think it's happening actually nowadays? Like, why this is happening?
I think what is happening nowadays is that we live in such a fast society where everything is so accessible. And if you think about it, most people start their day on their phone. So the first thing you do on your day, your brain makes dopamine to that specific thing. So if the first thing you do is getting your phone out, the whole day you're gonna kind of want this rush. So I think what we are, and even if you look at work, you have deadlines, but then you also want to be social, so you also have your social deadlines. So I think people are just so focused on fast solutions and but also a fast way of living. So then it makes sense that people are also searching for, when they don't feel well, they want it fixed in like a blink of an eye, because they want to continue with their lives. But I think it's in our society that it's just like on this train and we almost never stop. And I think it's not so much about becoming something or someone else, but it's about slowing down and really tuning in with who you are. So kind of remembering who you already are instead of like becoming someone new. And I think what we want nowadays is to become the best version of ourselves. But if you go back to the basics, like who am I already? What do I need? And if you start your day with this simple question, what do I need today? What does my body feel like? What does it need? What does my soul need? What does my mind need? Then you can already be more present.
Yes. Do you also notice that within your clients that they maybe even they come to you and they want this immediate like spiritual effect of just what they see on Instagram, for example, and then they come to you and you offer a bit different type of spirituality, the more grounded, that is maybe less photogenic, but more really for the inner work. And does it happen sometimes that you have clients coming for something else that you are offering?
Yeah, so sometimes people come to me, they say, I want like a shamanic journey. And then I start talking to them, and then I think maybe we should start with like focusing on like, what does your day look like? How do you feel? What do you nurture yourself with? Like, how can you relax? What stresses you? And then sometimes they are like, but I really want to do this. And of course, I will facilitate what someone wants. But then I get the feedback a lot of the times, like it was so helpful that we first went back to the basics and then we did the shamanic sound or the journey afterwards. That happens.
And did you ever have someone in that situation who left like unsatisfied, let's say, or be like, this is not really, no?
No, never.
That's really great. And for anyone who is listening to us right now, do you have any tips how embodied everything that we are just talking about? So basically, probably how embodied the spirituality from like the simplest basic ways.
I think the most important thing is to take it step by step, day by day. I think what you can do is to focus on the small things. So to not see it as like, I need to change everything in my life, but to be present with everything you do. So if you're eating a meal, eat your meal. If you're taking a walk outside, take a walk outside. Don't maybe put music on, but just be very present with your surroundings. So every task you're doing during the day, try to be present and to focus on that main thing. And also what can really help is to, for example, with social media, maybe to not focus so much on the differences between you and other people, but maybe find people who you can resonate with, so you can see more resemblance, so you feel more connected, and so it can inspire you. So maybe look more for inspiration instead of like, ooh, this is something I need to achieve. And I think it all comes down to really realizing that you never have to become someone else, but you just have to remember who you are.
Wow. I was just really listening to what Kim was saying, and I was really taking it in. And I thought, yes, I have to do all of those things. Great. Thank you so much for joining. I really appreciate that you made time to come and that we could talk as well here and share a bit more. And I always appreciate as well talking to someone who is also from the field, doing work as a guide and works with people. So thank you so much. It was such a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you so much.
I hope you enjoyed our conversation with Kim and listening to her stories. If you would like to find Kim online, you can find her on her website at www.pachamama.nu or on her Instagram at kim-ghost. The links to her website and her Instagram will be also added in the description of this episode. And if you would like to share with me any comments or topics that you would like to hear about, or you have any questions to me or to Kim regarding this episode, you can contact me directly through my email at hello@agata-holistic-touch.com or through my Instagram at agata-holistic touch. Thank you so much for being with me again on this episode. I hope you enjoyed to listening to me and my guest, and looking forward to meet with you again soon. My name is Agata Malczewska, and that was third episode of Holistic Touch Podcast.